guys.
Howdy, brothers.
Welcome back to another episode of Whiskey and Water.
I am your co-host, Jess.
And I am your co-host, Liv.
And we are back at it again.
Back at it again.
And if you're new here and you're kind of wondering what's good with the Howdy Brothers, we call our audience the brothers because we constantly say, hell yeah, brother.
Good call.
Yeah, right?
Because it's been a while since we explained ourselves.
Yeah. And what if they're just like, what the fuck is this?
What is this? And, you know, we don't have that saying trademark, so don't come for us. We don't own the rights to that.
Nope. No liability
technically, there. I mean, the last time we checked, no one owns the right to that.
Yeah.
To that.
We checked.
What is that?
Slogan.
So hell yeah, brother.
I feel like if anyone owns it, it's Hulk Hogan,
obviously,
our Lord and Savior.
It's so funny because like we don't even
follow Hulk Hogan
at the slightest.
Nope.
We have no emotional attachment to him, but hell yeah, brother is what we have, you know, built our brand off of.
He's not wrong.
I mean, it's a quote we live by.
I'm quite literally going to get it tattooed.
It's our mantra.
So
anyways, with that being said, had to give a brief explanation. If you are new here, though, this is a show about female entrepreneurship and women in business. We have a new episode every Monday. And
so it only makes sense that we call you guys brothers.
We're just really popping off.
About what?
Life. Oh. Anyways, guys, before we get into our incredible episode, we do want to say thank you to our show sponsor, Celsius.
Celsius, keeping me cracked.
Celsius.
No.
We just have to find a way to really, you know, Alessa's getting bored, our brand rep with Celsius, and I just want to keep her on her toes.
Gotta keep her on her toes.
So.
Celsius. I'm so sorry. Okay, guys.
Anyways, that never happened.
Okay, guys. This is a healthy energy, accelerates metabolism, burns body fat ass drink. We love to see it.
Burns body fat ass drink? It's an
because I had started it with this is A, so
gotcha.
I had to wrap that up.
Gotcha. Anyways, it has no high fructose corn syrup, but no aspartame, no preservatives, and no artificial colors or flavors. Guys, I don't know if you can tell, but we may or may not be cracked out. Not cracked out. It's a healthy, it's a good
crack.
There's no crash after. It's not like you're drinking coffee.
Drinking Celsius prior to fitness activities is proven to energize, accelerate metabolism, burn body fat, and calories. Invest in yourself. Drink Celsius.
Love that. Link is in our description.
Powerful.
And we put all of our friends and family on. Everyone's on the Celsius train, and you should be too. So link is in our description. Don't tell us we didn't warn you or try to put you on. So today's episode is really so great. It's so good.
It's so good.
Wow. I love when I expect every guest to be great, but then I love after the interview being like, that was even better than I thought.
I mean, truly exceeded expectations.
Okay. So we had Lauren on. She is the co-host of Pop Apologists with her sister, and it's a pop culture podcast.
Yeah.
And they have recently gained a lot of traction, a great audience, and they literally talk about, I mean, definitely a lot about their lives, a lot about pop culture, and a lot about specifically Bravo reality shows, which is such a fun niche.
Yeah, it is. And they also just so they're sisters, and they have a 5-year age difference, and they kind of just talk about all things you know, being in your 20s, and Lauren just turned 30, so
we talk
just a lot about that partnership, what their friendship is like, and just kind of catching up with each other.
Yeah, and going through life, you know, and kind of I could see it being really interesting having a 5-year difference, and just the different parts of their lives that they are in, and how they can relate, how they can't, what they've learned, what you learn in that 5-year difference. I mean, that's a lot.
Yeah. And she also just puts us on. So of course, naturally, because they have a podcast, we had to pick their brains
for us and for you.
I mean, mainly for us, but she tells us truly the tea behind the podcast, which I love, which is she talks about how they have a Patreon, how they are signed to what is it called?
It's a network, a podcasting network.
Yeah, so like they're in collaboration with a network that helps them like get good guests on.
Which is great for us because that's one of our huge goals with the show. And we definitely kind of deep dive into the podcast, how it went from a hobby into a business and just what that journey has been. And then we get into the second part of the episode is like we talk about her fun tech startup, which I don't want to give it away because we originally didn't know what it was. So like our reaction is really authentic and finding out what it is. And it's really cool. I mean, I feel like I could have talked to her for another hour just about her tech, her fintech. It's called fintech for
financial tech.
Financial tech, because we have women in business from all different fields.
Yeah,
so
super interesting.
Yeah, really great. We definitely picked her brains about that.
She's checking all the boxes. She has a podcast and she's in fucking fintech.
Yeah, a queen.
I was like, what is fintech?
Yeah, I know, literally.
We're like, so explain this to us like we are in kindergarten.
All I know about is findom.
Not the same thing.
Not the same thing.
Gotta tell you guys.
Google findom if you want to know what that is.
Don't
it's interesting. So yeah, great episode. You guys have a lot to look forward to.
But before we go into it, she had told us about how she has a Patreon with her sister for this podcast, and we realized that's something that I feel like we could be doing.
I mean, no 100% decision has been set in stone, but let's just say we're 99.9% that we're going to start a Patreon.
And we're going to be producing extra bonus episodes for you guys. We haven't decided the frequency or anything like that.
Or the price or anything. We literally...
we talk about this in the episode.
She talked us into it, and it's something that we have talked about before. So her talking about it and saying it was a game changer for her show was really all we needed to make the decision.
So we wanted to run it past the brothers and see what you guys thought. And if you guys would be into that, please shoot us a DM, let us know.
Yeah.
And if you guys would want it to be a little bit more like how Whiskey and Water was before the rebrand, like we're thinking that we're going to do like more in-depth catch-ups like about our lives, talk about like the fun stuff that sometimes we don't necessarily get to anymore.
The juicy details.
Getting back to getting dick down.
Yeah, honestly, there is such a different side of us that we have not neglected, but we just haven't been able to fully,
deep dive on.
We really want to keep the value of this show and of our brand really focused on entrepreneurship and business. So that, of course, leads us to miss out on some of the,
juicy details,
fun stuff. But that is something we're definitely thinking about. And even just talking about it, like it's something I'm really excited for because we do have ideas that I think we can just be really fun and really creative with on this second platform.
Yeah.
And of course, we're going to be fair. We're not going to like be charging people $100 a month for this.
No, fuck no.
But we want a kind of like we talked about it with Lauren in the episode. It's almost like a close friends for the podcast.
Yeah. And I think that's like a great way to put it because like there's even stuff that like I wanted to do like pre-rebrand that we never got to do, like getting high as fuck on an episode. I mean, yes.
No, we did that. We did that once for the conspiracy theories.
Were we high for that?
Yes.
Oh,
yes,
that's
we
funny.
were.
Oh, that's interesting.
If you haven't listened to that episode and
guys, we have some fun fucking episodes.
We really do. And actually, great. I'm glad you brought this up because I feel like we don't mention our previous episodes enough. Y'all,
we're brand new bitches.
We are 81 episodes in. We have talked about so much
everything
good shit, and there's just really valuable stuff. So if you haven't taken a chance to go and listen to our older episodes, please do that.
Do yourself a favor and go do it.
That's your weekly challenge. No, just kidding.
Oh, but we do have a weekly quote before we dive into it with Lauren. So let's do it.
The weekly quote, and we're switching this up from a weekly challenge whenever we feel like we want to switch it up. The weekly quote is, "You're exactly where you're meant to be right now." And I feel like that can be cliche, or I know we've definitely brought it up in episodes before, but I feel like it's always fitting.
It is. And it's because like we were having a conversation before we got into the intro with just Olivia and I was telling her how I was feeling kind of like overwhelmed with just like life a little bit.
It's slightly triggered by Lauren's pressure to get into just start learning about cryptocurrency.
I'm like, there's so much to fucking do.
So
how am I supposed to put this on my to-do list?
Because it's so important and we know it, but we're like, all right, adding another thing.
And where the overwhelm comes from is not having that structure, like to put in like, okay, this is when I'm going to do leisurely things like this. You know, it's like I'm living life on fucking autopilot right now, like just trying to do whatever I can.
You need to take the pro tip from our last episode and use a calendar. Okay. All right.
Calendar.
Schedule.
And calendar.
And calendar.
A calendar. I think we're onto something right now.
Yeah.
Wait. Did we just come up with a business idea?
Write it down, brother.
Calendar.
So yeah, you are exactly where you are meant to be in this moment, whether you're driving, cleaning, doing laundry, at work, sneaking us in. I wonder if anyone listens to us while they're at work.
Oh, for sure.
Let us know. I want to know where you work. I want to know what you do.
Tag us in a story of you at work and you on your phone.
Yes. I want to know, like, if you hide your AirPods under your hair, like how I did when I would go out to clubs in LA for model housing and I listened to podcasts in the club.
If that's not on brand, I don't know what is.
We won't hold you guys any longer. We're going to do one brief sponsor in between, and then we'll see you on the other side. Oh, also, if you haven't left us a rating already and review on Apple Podcast app, please do that. Let us know, especially if you're like a every week listener. Would love to see your love.
All right, brothers. We'll see you on the other side.
And we also want to talk about fitness realm, which you guys already know the deal. We've talked about them before.
I'm trying to build my dump truck. It's dump truck season. It's fatty season. And you guys know that fitness realm is where I'm going for all of the fitness related inquiries.
Yeah, so they have articles, they have products, they have vetted all of the things that they have within the actual website, which is really nice. Like we've mentioned before, you don't have to go looking through reviews and trying to find the best product. It's literally just a one-stop shop. You have everything you need right there.
Hell yeah, brother.
Yeah, so go check out Fitness Realm, link in our description.
Mm-hmm.
All right, guys, we are on with Lauren. Lauren, thank you so much for sitting down with us today. We're so excited to pick your brains. How are you doing today?
I'm doing so well. Thank you so much for having me.
Yes.
Truly so grateful to be here.
Aw, sweet. We're so excited to have you. For our audience who doesn't know about you or what you do, could you just give them a little brief introduction?
Yeah, absolutely. So I am the co-host of the Pop Apologists Podcast. I host it with my sister. It's a reality TV, celebrity gossip, and honestly, just like keeping it real between two girls podcast. Like we say basically what everyone's thinking, but is too afraid to say. So that's kind of our deal. We've been around for a year, a little over a year actually. And then I am also the co-founder of a tech startup called Retained Finance. And it is essentially a multi-lender platform that allows attorneys to offer financing to their clients without actually being the bank for their clients. So two totally different things.
Very different things. And we'll get into all of it, but we love a multifaceted, woman who can handle different things. And I actually love the contrast between those two things, where you have the podcast, which we briefly discussed on our briefing call, which just deep dives into reality TV shows. Mm-hmm. And then you have this totally other project, which is like hardcore financial business. I think that's really cool.
Thank you so much. Yeah. I mean, I was definitely, I think in my early 20s, I was very much like, I need to have one identity. Like I need to be really good at one thing. And that needs to be like, I need to do my 10,000 hours. And I was super, super driven. And I was like, and I need to become like, in history books someday. I was kind of intense. It's kind of ridiculous, super pretentious. And then anyway, I think that one of the great things about my later 20s and now I'm 30 is really relaxing into embracing, both sides of my personality. And I think that almost everyone can relate to that,
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, a lot of people and I feel like a lot of people, just kind of speaking on the age thing, like a lot of people like fear their 30s and like their late 20s, when I feel like that's like when you really start to come into yourself, like every year of my life, I feel like I've just become a little bit more myself. And I love that.
We're 25 for reference, by the way.
Oh, you are? Yeah. You know what's so funny is so I'm 30, my fiance is 29. And so I'm around a lot of guys and girls that are just a little bit younger than me. They're all like 26 to 29 basically. And they're all like, I tell them I'm 30 and they look at me with like death, like death in their eyes. They're like, you're 30? Oh my gosh. Like I had no clue. And anyway,
they're like, are you okay?
Totally. Like I remember being 26 and being 28 and feeling the same way. And 30 is just like a weird number in our culture, especially for women.
Yes.
Where I think sorry, I'm one to kind of go on and on, so please interrupt. But I think that there's two things at play. One is there's like a cultural pressure to always be in your youngest prime, and I think that it's just like a Hollywood bullshit, like disgusting thing.
Yes.
But then I think there's also a biological reality, and so both of those things are at play for women and just create kind of a lot of mental anxiety. And anyway, yeah, I think actually turning 30 was a relief for me because like really everything has gotten better so much every year, and I highly recommend it.
10 out of 10 on
Highly
aging.
recommend getting to 30.
Great, on aging gracefully.
No, and actually I love that because
it's so
I mean,
good.
I know I definitely kind of have that like
Fear.
that weight, and you know, like I think
Everyone
it is
does.
just a societal thing as well as like biological, which I do feel like is kind of set up by society as well. Like they're like, oh, you have to have kids by the time you're 30, or you know, like half of your eggs are fucking gone, and like that's always kind of scared me. But I also feel like it's not as accurate as we think.
I am no scientist, so
This is not biological advice.
I am no doctor.
Yeah, I mean, obviously if you want to have kids, it's better to do it younger than later, and I think that
Better for your body, at least.
better, yeah. But I also, I mean, yes, totally better for your body. If you, but I also feel like, you know, like I'm not a person that likes to reject or ignore facts. Like I want to always embrace facts, and so like, yes, it's better to have kids when you're younger, the younger you are generally, but 30 is still really young. And that's something you'll find out the day you turn 30 is you'll look in the mirror and you'll be like, wait, I still look the same. Like nothing happened. Like I'm not a pear that overnight went like not, you know, unripe. And so it's something I think everyone experiences when you turn 30.
And it's funny that you kind of in your younger 20s were like this really type of, you had this like super ambition that was maybe almost to a fault, it sounds like, in a way, and then you with age you kind of come around to really embrace, like you said, those two sides, because that's something I really resonate with as well. Is like the older I'm getting, the more I'm valuing things other than money and success and like just other aspect of life that make life great and worth living, and kind of really appreciating a more mellow pace.
Laid back.
Yeah,
but
exactly.
Like, so and being whiskey and water, like that's a really big theme of our show, is especially talking about female entrepreneurship, also finding that fine line balance between the two, you know?
Totally. I mean, I in my early 20s, I think I was just like so hell-bent on, I was very into art, and so I was so hell-bent on like being I really wanted to be a very serious person, and I just don't give a shit anymore. And like I give less and less of a shit every year, and just I love everything. Like I love nerdy things, and I love super shallow, you know, ridiculous things. So I love it all.
And I
so
feel like
good.
I mean that definitely I resonate with that a lot, because I'm telling you, every year of my life, I'm just like, I also give less and less of a shit. And I'm really excited to, at one point, give no shits.
I mean, that's the goal, right?
Yeah.
About literally.
That is enlightenment.
About
is
anything.
Giving no shits.
And I like that you're embracing the things that people usually would consider a guilty pleasure. Like you're taking the guilt away from guilty pleasures, you know, like just fully embracing it. And I want to talk about your podcast a little, because
Yeah, let's do it.
Yeah, let's get into it. Obviously, as podcasters, we know the deal, we know the game, but it's so interesting to know that like your podcast is strictly based around these reality TV shows, and you guys like go in depth, and you have such a great audience who just
Thank you so much.
Who just eats it up and shows up every week to listen to you guys talk about that. I want to know like how the show even came to be.
Yeah, totally. Okay, so in 2016, my sister and I were both going to BYU in Utah, and I was graduating and she was a freshman. And, you know, we loved Kanye West, we loved pop culture, and especially in a very conservative environment, we certainly felt like we certainly were embracing frivolity, and we felt like we just wanted to defy the norm of like having it be a guilty pleasure, which is where the name Pop Apologists comes from. It's like, it's apologizing for pop culture in a way that dignifies it and shows the value. But then and so we started it, and we got 11 episodes in, And then a dark thing happened, which is our mother found out about it. I think it was
I was kind of scared for a second. I was like, what happened?
I mean, and this podcast, it had like, I don't know if you guys remember, but there was one time when Orlando Bloom was photographed nude on the beach with Katy Perry, like,
Yes.
Yep.
yeah, in 2016.
Vividly remember that.
Yes, exactly. How could you forget? One of the best days for pop culture and for women. And anyway, there was definitely an analysis of those nudes and a lot of gratitude for them and just like obviously and fun. But that was something that we were so not prepared for our mother to listen to, who definitely still paid her T-Mobile bill. And so to protect our cell phone bills, we deleted the podcast, hastily. And then in March of 2020, I was actually working and I got laid off due to COVID. And I was working for, a company. I was working a normal job. And anyway, we kind of were like, let's do the podcast again. Like, I have all this free time and let's just do it. And so, and we're, both financially free from our parents, thankfully, especially at 30. Oh my gosh. And so anyway, the podcast, like a phoenix, was reborn without fear of, maternal retribution.
Right.
Love
so
that.
fun. So it really just like came about as like a pure hobby and like just for fun.
Totally out of joy and love. And my sister and I are super close. And like, before the podcast, I would call her for 30 minutes every day and we would chat the whole time. And like just about life and everything that was going on. Can you believe this? Can you believe this? And then we're like, why don't we just put that into like, let's just like, do that in the podcast form. So now honestly, we podcast, every week, and then we chat for 30 minutes a day, essentially about the business of the podcast.
Right. Which is also something we definitely want to get into with you.
Oh my gosh.
And so you live in Puerto Rico currently, right?
I do, yeah.
And where does your sister live?
My sister lives in San Francisco.
Okay.
And
Gotcha.
what is the age difference?
She's 25.
Okay.
Gotcha.
A solid 5 years. Me and my sister are 5 years apart too. I feel like that's a really good time frame part.
And just really quickly, BYU, isn't that like known for being a little bit more of a conservative school?
Yes. We both grew up Mormon. We're not, we don't identify as Mormon anymore and haven't for, especially me, a very, very long time. But yes, we both grew up Mormon and that's the only school our parents would pay for. And so, we went on there. So.
Okay, I now it makes sense. I understand how you guys talking about his dick and really being excited about it. I can see how your mother wasn't totally excited about that.
Yeah, exactly. She gave us 1 hour to delete all of it from the internet before she would listen. So my mother's kind of a legend anyway.
Okay, we love it. A queen. I definitely want to talk about how you guys started this as a hobby and now it is a full-fledged business. And even like what you said, how you guys talk 30 minutes a day about the business of podcasting.
Yeah.
Let's get into it. At what point did it turn into a business?
Well, it's not it's obviously it makes money, but it's not like supporting either of us. It's not at this level where it's like, we're both like in Maui, at the Four Seasons off the podcast.
One day.
But it
One
is
day.
nice one day. But we did file a Schedule C for it in 2020. So it definitely is a business. It definitely, makes money. And it's funny. Like people ask, like, are you so much closer to your sister now that you guys have this podcast? And I'm like, actually, no. Like our relationship is definitely strong, but since we're so much like in business and working together, it's almost like a little bit more strained. And we definitely work like not in a bad way, but you know what I mean? Like when
we get it.
Yeah, when you're building a business with someone. And then she works full time, I work full time, like you only have so much energy. So our personal chats have completely gone by the wayside because we have to talk about Pop Apologists. But anyway, your question was it becoming a business. So 6 months into the podcast, we were spending, like $500 a month on it and that was like minimum between editing, paying like an editor to help us, paying for some help with the marketing and all of that. And we were just like, this is taking up not only 30 hours a week, but then it's also costing money. And we were just like, we cannot go on like this.
Yep.
So we started a Patreon account, and the Patreon account totally changed everything for us because we started to be able to cover our expenses with the podcast. And then also it just gave us so much faith in like the proof of concept. Like, okay, there are people that will pay for an extra episode a week of this. Like we need to keep going. We need to have like faith in it. And so that's really that. The Patreon is definitely makes it a lot more work, but it's so worth it. So
tell us a little bit more about this, because
we have talked about Patreon a lot and have wondered ourselves if, when we, like you said, it's an investment, and it definitely was for us. We started in 2019, and at the time, I don't know if we ever told our audience this. If you're comfortable saying it, I am.
I don't know.
I think we ended up spending like almost $600 an episode or $400 an episode.
Babes, and that's per episode. It's mental illness, bruv.
Per episode, 4 episodes a month. So we totally understand.
Being, if you're paying an editor, that's 100%.
Yes, and it being an investment, and at that point, it's like it's a passion project, but it's also like a money pit too at that point. So we've talked about where we want to go with it and our rebranding and just the different options available, and we have talked about a Patreon. So it's really great to hear you say that was like a pivotal thing for the show and kind of what led next for it.
So, and with your Patreon, are you still doing it, and 2, is it just that additional episode per week or per month?
Per week. So we put out a Patreon episode every Friday. So we're going to actually hit 100 episodes, including the Patreon, in like a month, which is wild.
That is fucking crazy, because I think this is number 81. 81 for us, so that's crazy.
Yeah.
I mean, it's pretty wild, because we thank you. I mean, we do the regular episode, and then it's like we're right back and we got to do the Patreon episode.
Yeah.
But I will tell you, it really, really changed the game for us. I mean, first of all, not having to cover the expenses ourselves was huge. And then also like we started saving money. We started saving the money. So we thought it's so fun to see this money build up. I wish we had just started immediately investing it back into the podcast, into marketing. But that's what we're doing now, is just basically repurposing all of it back into marketing. But anyway, it was fun to like see that amount build up, and it just makes a huge difference,
Yeah,
for sure. I mean,
mentally, it really does.
Yeah,
totally.
Trust me,
we
can relate.
This has been a very mental thing, and you're so right, especially when it is a hobby or when it is a passion project. Like where you're at mentally with the project is so important, because that influences how you're showing up,
the energy around it.
Yeah, if you're showing up inspired, uninspired, if you're feeling like it's a drag. I'm curious to know, how do the episodes on your Patreon differ from the episodes that you just put out on the normal apps?
Okay, so for the normal episodes, obviously if we have any sort of guest, it's going to go that guest, unless they're like a college friend. Okay. They're going to go on the normal episode. Okay. So the normal episodes have become more like me and my sister about twice a month, and then a guest twice a month. Okay. And then the Patreon, honestly, we banned our mother from listening to it. And so it's she's come up again. She's truly amazing. She's phenomenal. But she anyway, so I'm verklempt. But we banned our mother from listening to it, so we can just be a little more loosey-goosey. We can be a little more frank.
Gotcha.
And yeah.
Okay, so that is the mother not listening version.
Totally. And there's certain things and just like in general, there's certain things I'm totally fine with a small number of people hearing, but I don't want the entire audience to know. Okay. So it's also like there's a comfortability with like, okay, there's not like a bunch of people are going to know about that.
Right. It's almost like a close friends for the podcast.
Yeah.
You know how Instagram has the close friends feature?
Exactly.
Yeah. Like I would be comfortable doing like those stupid segments that we've always talked about, like getting high as fuck and doing an episode.
right. Or
like getting super drunk and doing an episode. Because these are on my bucket list.
These are ideas, and I'm like, we can't do it.
I would be so down.
I got super buzzed and I went live on Instagram like 3 months ago on our podcast. It was actually really, really fun.
I'm sure.
But I'm not sure how fun it was for the people watching. But yeah, I recommend it. And like, just like you guys rebranded, you know, and you're more focusing on business, the Patreon could be for everyone who loved it when it was more, you know, fun or not that it's not fun now, but you know what I mean.
Totally.
Sure.
Yeah. Wow. That's great.
And I'm really curious. You said that you are repurposing your budget back into marketing. What kind of marketing things are you doing? Because we've done a lot of marketing for the podcast.
We've done Facebook ads and things along that nature, but our audience, especially, like we tend to, especially now that we rebranded, we talk a lot about influencing and we talk a lot about podcasting. Like we did a whole dedicated episode about podcasting. We have a lot of podcasters on, so I feel like this is really valuable information for them to hear as well. Just like how do you market a podcast?
Would love to talk about that. So right now first of all, we pay a network to book us guests. And so we're not at a listener level yet where like, you know, we can just like basically, we're not a listener level yet where we're with a network officially. So we pay a network to book us guests, which is super, super helpful and something I highly recommend. You know, we booked now many people that I reached out to try to book myself. I like to just be totally frank. So I literally was like, we'll pay you $500 to come on our podcast for 20 minutes. Right. You know, these kind of like bigger names.
Wow.
No response, nothing.
Wow.
You know, and that's just like, it's just so hard when it's just you, like trying so hard to get guests. And I think guests are so important because they lend credibility to your podcast. So anyway, like I was doing all this outreach and it was pretty brutal and we were getting essentially nothing, no responses. And then we had a network approach us to have someone else on. And I was like, hey, we would love to, the way you're booking us on their show, we would love to have you book people on ours. And they're like, okay, well, generally we do ad share, but you guys aren't at the listener level yet where we would do that. And so let's do a revenue share for ads. And so let's do a combination. We'll do revenue share for ads. And then you can just pay us a little bit for us to book you guests until you're at the level where we can just do pure rev share. So we did that. And it has been the best investment we've ever done. It's just been phenomenal. We're working with Podcast Nation and they're just amazing. I love them so much. And so that's the primary way I think that's definitely one of the primary ways we're putting money into the podcast. And now I'm experimenting with Spotify ads. I just ran my first one last week.
This is news to me. That's great. Yeah. I didn't even know that you could do Spotify ads.
Yeah. And it's really easy. You could you could record an ad, a 30-second ad, you know, take an hour to write a script for it, record it. You could have it up in an hour, essentially. Really it's all self-service. It's really easy. They provide you a dashboard so you can see all the results and everything. And so now I'm experimenting with like, okay, I want to figure out what ads are going to track really well and then double down on the ones that are, double down on the audiences that are converting. So kind of that sort of thing.
So it advertises on other podcasts?
It advertises on Spotify. So like when someone's listening to music. Yeah.
Smart.
Interesting.
Genius.
I love that.
What's good about our podcast is I think our demographic is really strong in 18 to 24 and love 18 to 24 year olds out there. But a lot of times when you're 18 to 24, you don't want to pay $9.99 a month. Definitely. You don't actually feel it. So those are people listening to ads.
That's why I've never gotten the ads.
So it works out perfectly.
Wow.
And you can select. You can be like only females, only between this age. You know?
Very smart. Okay, so prior to getting with the network, what did you guys do in terms of getting the podcast out there? Because we did a little lurking, and your personal accounts don't have, you know, these huge audiences. Usually when there's a huge podcast, the hosts usually have that huge audience, and everyone from their audience comes to the podcast. But you're the opposite. So I would love to know how you guys got the podcast out there.
Well, let me clarify. We are not a huge podcast, although you are extremely nice. We are bigger,
established.
Established, and also, you know, we just compare everyone to ourselves, and we're like, compared to us, you guys are huge.
Oh my gosh, you're so nice. No, okay, so I would say that one of the key things that we did was, you know, we were pretty thirsty with it at the beginning. So like, every time we promoted an episode, we promoted it on our own stories too. So that drove people that, you know, love us, that follow us on our personal accounts to the pod. But like you said, those are really friends and family. Like we are not influencers. Like we don't have huge followings whatsoever. When we started, I had 300 followers on Instagram, because I personally have deleted my Instagram so many times.
I love it.
Because I've been like, I'm going off social media, I'm going to live in the woods.
Yes. This speaks to me.
Nature is calling. Anyway, so a few things. So we did that, and we tried to generate a lot of hype around it by being just pretty thirsty. And then I think that another key thing that was super helpful is our sister actually at the same time, or 6 months before, had started a like fashion influencing account. It's kind of like she's called Courtney Grow, and her account at the time was called Great Things I Bought. And she has amazing style. She's like the tastemaker of our family.
Nice.
She's incredible. She's stunning. And so anyway, she started really quickly gaining followers and doing really well. And the way she did that is she had a lot of friends with, semi big followings, like in the 5,000 to 10,000 range, who promoted her and said, oh my gosh, you got to follow my friend Courtney. So and then obviously her content is super high quality. So anyway, she grew pretty quick. And then actually what's funny is my sister and I went and stayed with her for a couple weeks in August of, I guess, 2020. And naturally by staying with her, we had her on the podcast. We were on a few of her stories, just by being in the same zone. And I think people were intrigued by her, and they're like, oh wait, there's these other two sisters. And so we got a lot of like,
her audience.
Her audience.
Yeah.
So my big tip is tap into whoever in your life has a network and has influence. And even if you like spend money, you buy something really nice, you invest in it. And like one of the things I want to do is buy one of my favorite influencers, a pair of the new Apple AirPod Maxes, they're like $600 or whatever, but get those engraved with their initials, send it to them with a nice note, and then pray to God they will post about you on Instagram. And it's like that kind of stuff. You got to hustle. You got to get other people's who have networks to blast you. So that's my advice.
That is great advice, and something we talk about often too, because being influencers, we have a circle of influencer friends, some with 1 million, some with 2 million. And we're like, how do we tap into this? But without, there's such a balance, because you don't also want to be clout chasing, and you don't want to be opportunistic and be, using people for their audience. So I think it's finding that balance and just staying true to yourself and staying authentic. Like, I don't think we would have someone that was totally off brand just because they have 1 million followers. You know what I mean?
Totally.
Speak for yourself. No, I'm kidding. No, but also, our friends, like we do have friends that have millions of followers, and we've had them on, but they are completely understanding that we're not having them on just for clout. They understand that.
They get it.
That's not us.
Mm-hmm.
Right. Totally. I mean, we've had like one major influencer who I will not name, to protect her, but she followed us, which we were so excited about, but we're still yet to ever ask her for anything or even send her any sort of PR package, because we're just like, we totally feel the same way. We kind of cringe at like asking people for stuff. But I will say there's a lot of opportunity for people in that 10,000 range, in that 5,000 range. If their following is authentic, which you have to be very smart about, because most people's are not, but if their following is authentic, then there's so much that you can accomplish by those people talking to their audiences. Those micro audiences are really powerful.
It's funny because I literally just wrote down micro influencers, because I think that's something we may have been overseeing for a while. Like, that was an oversight, and it's so true, because their audience really is it's more engaged. It's more niche. It's more engaged. I feel like closer to the influencer than, say, someone who has 1 million followers who feels like they're just another fan.
Exactly.
Maybe. Yeah. Totally. So I totally agree with you that there's a lot of power in those micro or even like medium influencers.
And those people are excited to get a gift package, you know?
Yeah, you're not wrong.
Like, they're going to put on for you.
Yeah. And one thing that, like, we talked about when we were really trying to grow, we're always trying to grow. But one thing we talked about was like $1 a follower. If we never pay for followers. We don't believe in that. But like in terms of investment, so if you invest in like a kit or something for someone who's an influencer, if you can get $1 per follower that you've invested in that kit or whatever it is, that's a good ROI. That's kind of our benchmark. So
I like it. I like it.
Yeah.
All right. Should we chat a little bit more about like what you guys talk about on the podcast? I think it's so interesting that it's like, it's reality TV and it's pop culture.
It's like, it's not even just reality TV though. You guys niche down to Bravo shows.
Bravo specifically.
Yeah. A lot of Bravo.
So I'm really interested. Like what are you guys like deep diving into?
You know, I would say, and we definitely talk about reality TV, but it's actually less of our content. I would say that our reality TV, we actually only do on the Patreon because a lot of our listeners don't watch the same shows as us.
Okay.
So we generally do celebrity news, and then it's a lot of like commiseration between two, sisters, a 25-year-old and a 30-year-old trying to figure things out, I got engaged in June of 2020 and then there was like the whole lead up to that kind of on the podcast. So people also like follow our lives a little bit.
Cool.
And so it's kind of a combination of everything we're thinking about, everything we're doing. And kind of in tandem with the growth hacking, talking about that is the content of the podcast needs to be strong. Like you have to have a strong product. And that's another thing. It's like, you just have to remember, like whatever you're like marketing and bringing people to, they need to get there and like it. And so that's another thing that is advice to like, podcasters or someone thinking of starting a podcast is just make sure whatever you're doing is delivering value to your audience.
And intentional. Like, I feel like a lot of people have obviously approached us and have been like, I'm starting a podcast. And I'm like, great. Like, what are you going to be talking about? And they're like, well, me and my friend, we FaceTime for an hour a day. And we just realized we could make this a podcast. And I'm like, have fun. Have fun doing it. And it's great. Like people can do things as hobbies and that's totally fine. But what I like to preface it with is saying like, if that's going to be it, make it a hobby. Like don't, do it like low budget. Like
right.
do it on your phone.
Don't expect it to ever be a business.
Don't invest. Don't treat it like a business. Don't commit yourself to it like a business. Treat it like a hobby if it's going to be a hobby. But something that we always talk about too is providing value. Whether, before when we first started the podcast, it was a lot of personal development, comedy, but that was the value. Like people got there. The value was the comedy. The value was our journeys as 20-somethings and just figuring it the fuck out. Her waking up hungover, me having to pour coffee down her throat. Like that was the value was entertainment at that point. And now that we've rebranded, it's like, okay, we had to pivot and say what is going to be our new value that we're offering. But it doesn't always have to be like educational necessarily.
No, I mean, here's what I mean by value. Like, okay, so if you're talking about Jennifer Lopez, I was about to say Aniston, Jennifer Lopez and Ben Affleck dating again.
Yes.
This is, if you're talking about that news story.
Wait, Jennifer Lopez
you are behind.
Ben Affleck are dating?
You're
well,
behind.
that's a good question, actually. So
let's get into it. Let's deep dive.
So what's not valuable to people is being like, whoa, crazy. Like, oh my gosh, I love this. Like, this is so great. Like, gosh, I can't believe it. Those are generic statements. They don't mean anything. There's nothing added to the conversation. Your audience is already falling asleep 2 sentences in. And so you have to like have a point of view about whatever you're talking about. You have to have a hot take. And my sister and I, before every episode, we know what topics we're covering, and we think about it before. We think about, okay, what's really going on? And what's actually interesting about Jennifer Lopez and Ben Affleck is they're not really dating. It's all a PR ruse. She wants to make A-Rod jealous. She wants people to think that she's on top of the world, even though she's probably heartbroken. And so she knows that the way to do this is to flex dating Ben Affleck again, going on some sort of romantic getaway. He just had the Raya scandal. So he wants, he doesn't want to be seen as like a thirsty guy going after 24-year-olds on Raya.
I'm pissed I did not see him on Raya.
Genius.
So of course, it's the perfect PR little story. And another thing people don't understand is that celebrities can hide completely whenever they want to. So there's never a situation when a celebrity is getting paparazzi'd in Target or whatever and doesn't know it. Like I mean, it's a very, 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 very low chance. Paparazzi or celebrities, they know that essentially if a story's in the media, it's because the celebrity has intentionally put it there. And so that's the value. It's like, okay, let's let you in on what's really happening as students of pop culture, you know?
Students of pop culture.
That's
I
hilarious.
love it.
And I actually really love that because we met someone who is in the public eye a few weeks ago, and she was transparent with us, and she told us that she calls like the paparazzi to like intentionally, like if she's like wearing a fit or something that she like low-key like needs PR in, like she'll have someone call the paparazzi. And we were just fucking mind blown.
I mean, wouldn't you if you looked really hot? Like, of course.
Yes. If I had a paparazzi to call, bitch, you already know we'd be out there.
Oh, we would be out there. And
it's hilarious.
And I just love that you even said that, because even our very small followings, we have gotten paparazzi'd in Miami.
Okay, but the thing is,
seriously.
Okay, but
like stupid little accounts.
But in Miami, it's so funny because I think these photographers just go up and down the beach and this is my theory. I think they photograph anyone who they think could be someone.
Yeah, totally.
And then they do the research
and then
later.
Their team finds our accounts.
Yeah, come 2017 or 18, we did get paparazzi'd on the beach.
Oh my God.
It was like the highlight of our life.
It truly was. We looked at each other and we go, it's happening. We're getting...
So, of course.
Like, we're blowing up.
Yeah,
like,
genuinely.
Wow. But it is such great PR. You know, now when we get our names Googled, those photos show up. And, you know, even like when it comes to working with brands or trying to get our accounts verified, I mean, hey, press is press.
Yeah. So, but it's just funny that you said, like, you know, it's not like they don't know they're getting paparazzi.
They know damn well.
We saw the photographer from a mile away and then immediately started model walking on the beach. Like, we were, you know, the abs were tightened.
It was great.
We were looking good. So it's just, it's hilarious.
Yes.
Totally. I mean, that's the thing is like celebrities can jet off and they can go to destinations and have vacations and have no one know. Obviously, if they're going to a destination and it's like, they're going to a big resort that a bunch of people are at, then they're going to get found out. But they could go to private residences with staff and like they can hide when they want to.
For sure.
So anyway,
we did definitely. God,
that was a tangent.
You can tell that like you can tell that we like have this like urge to talk about pop culture, but we just suppress it.
Yes, maybe on the Patreon. Yes, you're not wrong.
You're onto something. I don't know where you want to take it, but I want to talk a little bit about your what do you call that? Sistership?
Yes.
What do you call a relationship that is within your family? Sisterhood? Well, so I want to talk about your sistership turned into partnership and kind of what that experience has been like, especially because I really like what you said about how most people would be like, oh, did you guys get closer? And you're like, well, not exactly, because it definitely can put a strain on a friendship or a family relationship, because a friendship or sistership is so different from a partnership in business. I mean, it's a completely different dynamic. Would love to hear your insight and what your guys' experience has kind of been with that.
Honestly, it's been really hard. Like, I will not.
Thank you for being honest. I love it.
It's been really, really brutal. Because, you know, we just went from being like every morning, these are like my gut feelings about life, about what I'm going through. Oh my gosh, whatever happened last night, whatever's going on, to like, hey, we need suddenly it's like, we need to deal with this, or like do this ad, or do this. We need to figure out what we're going to talk about on the podcast. We need to, there's so many things that go into it. We need to do the teasers on the Instagram. We need to respond to these DMs. There's so much to do. And then when you have two people, of course it becomes a matter of, well, who's doing more? Right. And then the person who does more can start to feel a little resentful. And the person who does less can start to feel a little bit like, is my territory getting infringed on, and guilty, and maybe a little insecure. like they're not contributing enough. And we just had a perfect storm of a lot of those issues. And they're just things that we've had to work through. And we've definitely come a long way. Like we're much more organized now. A lot of the minutia we have managed and we have people helping us. So that has helped a lot. So there's no more like, we're not like necessarily squabbling over petty stuff. Mm-hmm. And so honestly, like, yes, we are definitely, the relationship is less fun, certainly.
Yes.
But it's also, we've grown so much and we've learned so much, and it's been an amazing journey. And so it's not necessarily, I wouldn't say it's a negative thing. You know,
right.
It's a good thing.
It's not either or, but it is interesting because all of a sudden, I could see like your sisters and you're chatting and you're, confiding in each other. And then all of a sudden you have this like long to-do list of things that need to get done. And that's a totally different dynamic.
Yeah, exactly. And then you either are so what happened essentially, let's get into the juice. Let's get into the drama. No, really, like I was laid off, right? So I had 100% free time. My sister had no free time. So what's funny too is my sister, when I got laid off, my sister was getting a job offer from, she works at Facebook. And so my sister was getting a job offer, a very good job offer from Facebook at the time, which definitely was like a little bit like for me, she's 5 years younger than me. It was just like a hard moment, of course, that we certainly had to navigate. But it's just funny looking back on now. But yeah, like, so she wants to throw herself into this new job, as she should. She should be super invested in her career. But someone has to do everything for the podcast. And so essentially I did 90% of the work for the podcast, or 80% or whatever, for the first year. And that just creates, you have to figure that out. You have to figure out what the result of that is. Mm-hmm. So anyway, it's definitely been a journey, but our relationship is super strong, and we are like, each other's ride or dies, and that like doesn't even cover it. So
yeah, for sure. Well, it's a challenge, but oftentimes the most challenging situations is what we grow from the most. So I could see how it's not all, butterflies and flowers, but it definitely has, I'm sure, strengthened the bond that you guys have.
Yeah, you totally. It's definitely strengthened the bond, and it's helped us mature, I would say, as entrepreneurs. So it's good.
Cool stuff.
Thanks.
So I do want to get into this other tech startup that you have thrown yourself into and learn more about it. And we prefaced before we started recording that this is a territory completely unknown to us. We don't know anything about tech. We don't know anything about startups, but having this as a women entrepreneurship / women in business show, I feel like it's only right to cover some of that, as you are a woman in business and a woman in tech and a woman who has a startup. So let's get into that. What kind of inspired this for you?
Yeah, absolutely. So I would never have thought of this on my own whatsoever. I was essentially just had a lot of free time, and in like March of 2020 or April of 2020, right when COVID was really serious, I was getting lunch with my dad, or having lunch with him. And he was talking about, just the frustrations in terms of like, my dad's an attorney, and he was just talking about the difficulties lawyers face because there's so many times when people just can't afford their fees. Yeah. And the legal field is really one of the only fields where the ticket price is always essentially above $30,000, 95% of the time. But there's no integrated financing option. So like if you go and buy a $5,000 or $20,000 car from, Honda, they're never going to ask you, they're never going to say, hey, this is the sticker price. Good luck paying us. They're always going to say, oh, and it's $400 a month if you with this financing option we have built in. And the legal field is one of the last fields that really just doesn't have that integration. Wow. And a lot of times a good attorney's retainer is $10,000 to $20,000. Right. People can't afford. Most people don't have that in savings. 70% of Americans don't have anything in savings, and so most people don't have that. But a lot of people have income, they have decent to good credit, and they can afford a low monthly payment. And so we kind of had this moment where we realized, hey, like we need to have an integration of financing at the point of sale, at the point of getting clients for lawyers, and for when attorneys, when their clients fall behind on their bills. Because that's another thing, is most attorneys bill hourly and then clients fall behind. So there needs to be a way for clients to have a way to pay their attorneys. And so that was kind of the light bulb moment, just talking with my dad. And then I just kind of I wouldn't say spiraled, but I went into a black hole of figuring out how we could do this. And I don't have a background in tech. I don't have a background in finance. I am not an engineer or developer. But what I think I can do is see a product market fit and know what's necessary to bring it to market. And if it's, feasible. So I have a technical partner. I have a funding partner. So really what I am is I'm the product designer. And I essentially kind of orchestrated all the parties around it coming together and building the platform and the application and the tool. And then, so yeah, that's essentially kind of how it came to be. It took about 9 months to get off the ground. And we really I would say we were really live in January of 2021. So it's only been a little while. But yeah, we have clients and we are doing great. So it's been really fun.
That's amazing.
Yeah, that is so fucking cool.
And you
thank you.
And I love it. Like, there was no sort of like self-doubt. You were like, hell yeah, we can do this. Like, well, I mean, I'm sure there was, I don't know what was going on behind the scenes.
Much self-doubt.
But I'm saying, like, you really pushed this to fruition. Like, you were like, this idea came to you and you fucking full sent on it. And I think that's awesome.
And it's cool because in entrepreneurship, like, I think every entrepreneur's dream is to find a problem to solve.
Yeah.
And like, this
Truly.
is such a prime example of you seeing a very clear gap in the market from, your dad, who is a professional in the industry, who is obviously complaining about this really big problem. I mean, that's money. That's how he gets paid, and that's how he gets paid for his services. So that is like so cool that you just saw that and you're like, this is a problem. Let's create a product to fix it.
Yeah.
Thank you so much. I mean, so first of all, I'll say there was so much self-doubt. And the only reason why I could build this business is for two reasons. One is I had a really, really amazing mentor. So my first job, I worked for someone named Taylor Shoup, and he is an incredible entrepreneur. And he really took me under his wing and taught me so much about like business philosophy, I would say. Cool. So not necessarily like the nuts and bolts of, of like how to build a P&L and all of that. It was more like what really matters in business. And I just learned so much. And so and he also has this infectious energy of like anyone can do anything. And so I think it was like that combined with my fiance, who is very technical. Those two people really were the people who were made it possible. So like with my fiance, he was the person who was like, when I said, oh, this is impossible, he was like, it definitely is. Look into this. Like things that I would have had to spend a month trying to figure out, he could tell me the exact thing to Google and to, pursue. And so I would say it was the combination of the two that really allowed me, like those two influences that really actually gave me the courage and the ability to execute. So I feel really lucky.
So great.
I love that. And I really do love that you kind of like, gave them their credit. And I do think it's so important, like the people that you keep around you. Because I mean, like even, so my roommate is a developer and he does like apps and stuff like that. So, I mean, there's just things that, like just the amount of knowledge that some people have that you can like just have at your disposal,
Tap
like
into.
is just priceless. And so I think that's amazing.
I mean, I think it's so true that the people that are around you, like you're so influenced by them and it's so important. And so, yeah, I just feel super, super privileged and lucky. And I would have I'd be doing something totally different if I hadn't, had both of been hired and truly mentored for a couple years by Taylor, and then met my fiance, who's the biggest influence in my life.
So
Love
amazing.
that.
I'm curious to know, how did you meet your mentor? Was it just like you had known each other previously or through mutual friends?
He's a family friend.
Oh,
yeah,
great.
known
Love
him
that.
for forever. Yeah.
And he kind of just took you under his wing, and it was a very casual thing.
Well, he hired me as his executive assistant.
Great.
And so
Wow.
that is how I kind of got an in, and he very, very kindly, hired me when I was totally green. I mean, I finished college at 25. It's a little late. And then I pursued a photography career, which I ended up getting burned out on. And then I was just kind of desperate to find a job when I was like 27. And he kind of like took a chance on me. And yeah, I feel extremely lucky because of that.
That's so great. I listen to a lot of real estate podcasts, and they often talk about mentorships. And it's something I do think about often, because we have some friends that we could consider mentors, but a lot of things that I listen to and read talk about mentorships as in like a really, it's set in stone. You are my mentor and I am training under you, whether it's like a paid mentorship or just an agreement on like the amount of hours that is, kind of free work in exchange for learning. But that is something that I do want to consider in our journey, is like having legitimate mentors that we have like almost a set schedule with, and just someone to really spend time with and really, really commit to and learn from. So I think that's so great that you owe so much of your success kind of to your mentor.
Oh, thank you. Yeah. I mean, I would say, it doesn't even have to be, if you are looking for a job, just go to work. I did not want to be an executive assistant. I had too big of an ego for that. And I did not want to be, I just didn't want to, I wanted to be more important than that, but I really didn't have the skills to be. And that's really what I was qualified to do. And it was totally great. And it was amazing. But I went to work for the best person I could go to work for.
Right.
And that is just the most valuable thing you can do. So it doesn't have to be someone who if you can get a mentor, that's incredible. And you can meet with them for coffee and kind of continue on whatever you're doing, but also consider go to work for the best person you can go to work for. If you're in a place where you're looking for a job or not inspired at your job. My sister and I, we talk a lot in the podcast about how working hard actually kind of sucks. And that's kind of like a running joke in the podcast. It's we actually don't like to work hard. We kind of work soft. And I think what we really mean by that
working soft.
I like it.
There's such a drudgery to being in a job that you don't love, and a job where you don't see a future in it. And so we kind of speak more to, that's kind of what we're really talking about, is having to be in that environment is so soul draining. But if you can find a situation where you are mentored and inspired and working for the smartest person, that's the best thing you can ever do.
Yeah, it's invaluable. And a lot of times that knowledge that you gain and that experience and education is so much more valuable than any monetary compensation you could get.
I consider college a total waste of time. I shouldn't have even gone to college. I should have just gone to work for the smartest person I knew out of high school. I was such a waste.
Period. Listen, and honestly, that resonates with me so much, because we both dropped out of FIU. It's the school here in Miami. And my dad always is you need to get a job because you need to have a fallback plan. And I was like, Dad, my experience is my fallback plan.
Yeah.
If I ever needed to get a job, my degree, while it definitely could not hurt, absolutely. But I know I won't need it, because my experience speaks for itself. Because
experience and the network too.
And the network, because I have all these amazing, relationships with people in different industries that if I was ever hey, I need or want a job, they'd be yeah, immediately.
I think if you're talking about a generalist, someone who is not a specialist, who isn't a developer, who's just who's a kind of an all-around go-getter person in business. And this is something I didn't understand in my early 20s. In business, all you really need is to be a general level of intelligence, and then a tenacity to figure it out. And you don't need any sort of degree. I mean, this is totally unsanctioned advice, and I really have no place giving advice to people, but I do think that going to work and going and figuring things out on your own, you're just going to learn so much more than getting some like bullshit humanities degree. And I got a degree in the humanities. So
yeah, I mean, we preach that.
I had 1 year left at FIU, but I was doing it all online and I was getting a communications degree. Like the fuck I can communicate on my own. Like I don't need to know how to navigate a intercultural, communications. Like I have the general level of intelligence and then the tenacity to get me anywhere I need to go.
I love what you said about the tenacity, because we do live in such a privileged age where, and like you said, your fiance would tell you exactly what to Google. I mean, we have the internet at our fingertips, and it's such a privilege. You really can find out anything you need to know from Google, and knowing what exactly to Google, because I promise you there's an article on it. As alone in your thoughts you think you may be, like, you can Google it, and there's other people out there wondering or with the same question.
If there's a will, there's a way.
There's a will, there's a way.
Yeah, 1,000,000%. And most of the time, like, for everything I'm doing now has nothing to do with what I studied in college. College was a great experience. I'm glad I did it for sure, but I think things would have been just as good, if not better, if I hadn't. So yeah, if I'm not trying to put college down, but like if you are insecure about that, if you're a person that's insecure about it, I would completely rid yourself of that insecurity, because I don't think it's anything to really brag about.
No, I agree. And education has its place when it does. If you're a doctor, if you're a lawyer, if you need
Absolutely.
a trade skill, of course.
Exactly.
Of course, you need that education. But I think definitely if you're on the entrepreneurial path and you're considering college, we live in such a great time where we can say you actually don't need it.
You're going to be more successful if you start your business for 4 years and work on it really intensely and live really cheaply. Yeah. And you're going to be much more successful than if you go to school for 4 years and then start your business.
Not to mention the amount of debt that it puts you in. Like, right. Let's say that you did have that expendable money,
sure,
and you had like a college plan, whatever, and you like reinvested that money into literally anything else, like a mentorship or like a coaching class, or like something that was like specific to entrepreneurship or your field, because although we are entrepreneurs, we do have fields. So like let's say it was like a tech startup. If let's say that you went to fucking coding school, which is what my roommate did. My roommate did that after college, and the coding school I think was like $11,000 or something, but it like equipped him so incredibly afterwards. And not to mention, they literally like pretty much guarantee you a job afterwards. Like they set you up for just such amazing success, and so many people just don't really know that they have access to these types of things instead of school. So
instead of like a traditional university or a state school.
Totally. Universities, in my opinion, are a racket. And like if like the thing about getting a degree that isn't like practically useful in the market is it prolongs your essentially your childhood, and it prolongs the period where you don't have to be useful in the marketplace. And one of the most painful experiences is learning the day that you graduate that you are completely unqualified for anything, and not unqualified, but like you're a person that needs to really start from the bottom in terms of learning how to develop a valuable skill for the marketplace. And figuring that out and doing that, it's really, really, really hard, but it's also super, super, super exciting because it's so rewarding to deliver value to other people, whether it's a company, whether it's your own business. And so I think the sooner you can actually make yourself useful to people in general through providing a product or service, it's the sooner that you'll really grow up as a person.
Yes. And this isn't to put, anyone who's listening who has gone through college and done the college experience, this isn't to put anyone down. We're all on our own journey and path. This is just, I think, geared towards someone who's maybe dabbling with if they should go to school or not, just saying that the possibility to be successful is not, dependent on,
not contingent upon.
Yeah, not dependent on your degree and getting a degree in whatever field you want to get it in.
Thanks for coming to our TED Talk.
Yes, thank you for coming to our TED Talk.
We convince people against college and universities like once a month.
Yeah, honestly. We really do, just because in our experience we just feel strongly about it. And I know in high school there was really such a heavy pressure of like you have to go to college, and I think that's what it is for us. We don't ever want to put it down, but where like you actually don't have to. And my last piece on this, and then we'll wrap it up on our tangent, is that I oftentimes do feel like I am ahead of some of my friends who did attend a 4-year university because I started in my career in the real world 2 years earlier.
Facts.
And we're all on our own path, not to compare, not anything, but I do feel like just in terms of the amount of time to meet people and network and gain opportunities and
get your foot in the door,
be in a job and then realize I hate it. Like I did that. I did that sooner than they are doing it. Okay, that's it. That's that on that.
Yeah.
This has been, wow, such a great conversation. I really do feel like I could sit here and pick your brains forever.
Oh my gosh, you're so nice. I've loved this. So fun being with you guys.
Yeah, I mean, I really feel like we could talk for years. We do have 2 questions that we do like to ask every guest, so we'll wrap it up with that. The first one being, what is your best piece of advice that you've ever received? It could be in business, it could be in life. Kind of a loaded
quote
question.
that you keep with you, anything like that.
Yeah.
My best piece of advice is to learn everything you can about cryptocurrency.
Oh, yes.
What, sister?
Coming in with the bangers.
She said, learn everything about cryptocurrency.
I am taking notes right now.
If you want to understand that the future of the world is changing at a faster pace than you can believe, and if you want to understand what the future will look like and reap the economic rewards because of it, because of your willingness to put in the work, that's my advice. Do so, because it's one of the most like galvanizing human experiences to learn about cryptocurrency, and I highly recommend.
Wow.
It is so, you know how I say that like conversations with guests will just like ironically take place in the weirdest thing?
Wait, because me too.
This morning on my Kindle, a book recommendation was about cryptocurrency, and I looked at it and considered it, and now I am going to buy it. Thank you.
And it's also crazy for me because last night I started this show that I fucking forget what it's called, but it's actually it's about Miami and this girl who like developed this like new coin called like Gen Coin. If you guys know what show I'm talking about, please let me know. But yeah, it's super interesting, and it's all about fucking cryptocurrency.
This is the push we needed. Thank you.
Wow.
You got to do it. There's actually a documentary on YouTube that I highly recommend. It's like if you search Bitcoin documentary, it's like the top one with the most views. Highly recommend it, because I think to learn about crypto, you have to understand like
what
high level macroeconomics and like how the monetary system works. So honestly, the first 40 minutes are all about that, but it's super interesting, and you have to start at the very beginning. So I actually would like read a book if that's what you're into. I don't have the attention span for books anymore. Social media has completely devastated it. And so anyway, highly recommend, like find a juicy documentary, pour a glass of wine, and like buckle in for the ride of a lifetime.
That's so cool.
Will do. It's on my agenda for this week.
Perfect.
And our second question is, what is your business pro tip? This can be anything from an app to a mindset tip, or just something that you feel like people are sleeping on.
So
she's like cryptocurrency.
No, I mean, what's my business approach? I mean, okay, so the first thing that comes to mind for me is actually, I'm totally stealing it. It's a quote from Ty Haney, who was actually quoting one of her mentors. She's the founder of Outdoor Voices. And she said, I listened to a podcast where she said the compression of time creates value. That was one of the big lessons she learned from one of her mentors. So essentially, if you can figure things out really quickly and then, pivot accordingly, you will reap so many rewards than trying to figure out things over a long protracted period of time, because there's like a compounding effect based on, being able to save time and then put to use what you've learned sooner and seeing those positive effects sooner.
Ooh, that is really, really interesting and different than anything we've ever heard. Thank you.
Yeah, for sure.
Also, I love Outdoor Voices. So that's
me too. Oh my gosh, yes.
What podcast was she on? Do you remember which episode that was?
It was like, I think it was How I Built This.
Oh, cool. Definitely.
Cool. I'm writing it down.
Yeah, that's a great one.
Cool.
Well, thank you so much. This was so great.
Oh my gosh. So fun for me, because it's such a change of pace, because on my podcast, I'm just talking about like Orlando Bloom on the beach. So it's been fun for me to talk about business. I've never talked about business on a podcast before. So it's super
cool.
fun.
Girl, you need to do it more, because
you're
super well spoken. You provided so much value.
Yeah,
Thank
truly.
you so much.
Yeah, it's an honor to have you on. If people want to follow you and your journey, where can they find you at?
Yeah, so my podcast is called Pop Apologists. Check us out. And same Pop Apologists on Instagram. Check us out.
Cool.
Cool.
Amazing.
We'll have it in the show notes as well.
Yes. If you guys enjoyed this episode, please take a screenshot. Let us know you're listening. Tag us. And also leave us a rating and review. And that's it.
We'll see you next week.
We'll see you next week, guys.
Bye. Thank
Bye.
you.